Quick question for you. What is one way to greet a friend in Spanish? How long did it take for something like ¿Qué tal? ¿Cómo estás? ¿Cómo te va? To pop into your head? Unless you're brand new to Spanish, probably not very long. It might have even been automatic. You didn't have to think, okay, how are you? ¿Cómo estás? ¿Cómo estás? In order for it to come out. It just sort of came out automatically. If that's the case, you already know exactly what it's like to think in Spanish. But here's the thing. I don't think that thinking in Spanish really is the right goal to be chasing. In this video, I want to explain why I think that is and what I think is a better alternative, a better goal to reach for in your Spanish learning, and how to get there. By the way, I'm Connor, and this is Breakthrough Spanish, where I help simplify conversational Spanish so that you can speak confidently faster. To me, the idea of thinking in Spanish means that we are thinking before we speak. We're putting a lot of logic into the way that we're speaking and the way that we're saying things. And yeah, it's good to a degree to think before you speak, to consider your words. But I think that most Spanish learners go way too far on that end of things, and they way overthink what they're trying to say. They overthink their grammar. They second guess the things that they've learned. They take these really complex sentences that they create in their minds in English and try to put them into Spanish, and it just doesn't let your speech flow in any way. I still fall into this trap now and then. I'll be speaking Spanish and I'll catch myself trying to think of like an English idiom will pop into my mind, for example, and rather than trying to communicate the idea behind that idiom, I'll try and search for the perfect equivalent for it. And that's just not really a way to communicate our ideas fluently. So let's take an example. Say you have been working all day with a friend on a project and you're just really tired. You're ready for it to be over. You want to say, let's call it a day. Let's call it a day. That's the phrase that pops into your mind, and you want to be able to say that to your friend. Well, you could hem and haw and try and come up with the perfect Spanish equivalent of let's call it a day, or you might even stop and look it up. And that's not always bad, but if you want to not think in English, you need to instead think of the idea behind let's call it a day. And that is, I'm tired. I don't want to keep working. Let's do something else. So in that moment, rather than getting hung up on the idea of let's call it a day, instead, the more thinking in Spanish way to do it is to just say whatever you're able to say with whatever words you have, even if they're simple and clunky. Estoy cansado. Dejemos de trabajar. Hagamos otra cosa. No quiero trabajar más. ¿Quieres hacer otra cosa? Whatever it is, it doesn't matter. The specifics of the words don't matter. The idea is that you're communicating, let's stop doing this thing, let's start doing this other thing because I'm tired. The individual words don't matter. The meaning that you're trying to express does. That's what thinking in Spanish really is. It's about thinking in ideas and communicating ideas, not word for word renditions of complex English thoughts that we have. Let's take an example. Say it's past lunchtime and I'm hungry, which it is, and I am. I don't need to think of the words I'm hungry in my mind in order to say to you, I'm hungry. My stomach tells my brain, which communicates through words, I'm hungry. It all just happens automatically. As you progress in your Spanish, and maybe this already happens with a phrase like tengo hambre, that phrase just comes out automatically. You don't have to think in your mind, I'm hungry, tengo hambre, in order to communicate that idea that you're hungry. It just comes out automatically. You register the feeling of hunger and the words come out. There's no quarter-second delay either as you improve, where you say just tengo hambre in my mind, then tengo hambre. You don't say the Spanish words in your mind, think in Spanish, and then say it. Just like you don't say I'm hungry before you communicate that. You just say it. This is maybe an oversimplified example, but it's meant to illustrate the notion that when we communicate fluently in a language, we're thinking more in ideas than we are in individual words. The individual words are a lot less important than the ideas that we're communicating. And those ideas that we communicate, like being hungry, we express without preparation or hesitation. And as you improve in your Spanish, you have a larger and larger bank of words and expressions and sentence patterns at your disposal that you can use to express yourself without having to think too much. So how do you build on that ability? What is a practical thing that you can do to start to switch off your English brain and start to communicate in a bit more of a Spanish-focused way? My simple suggestion is really to shift your focus away from trying to think in Spanish and instead try to communicate your ideas in a very simple way, in a way that allows you to communicate without trying to structure your sentences in neat and tidy ways. And instead just simplifying your sentences down to the simplest idea, the bare minimum idea that you can, whatever you can communicate without having to overthink. This means communicating with whatever words come to mind. It means keeping your sentences nice and short. It means when you can't think of a word, rather than getting hung up on that word, it means finding your way around that word by explaining what's going on or finding a new or different way to explain what you're trying to say. For example, say I'm trying to talk about my morning and I can't seem to remember, or I don't know how to say I woke up. Me desperté. I don't know that word. I can't remember it. There are other ways to express something similar. Me levanté. I got up. Salí de la cama. I got out of bed. Salí del cuarto. I exited the room, left the room. Empecé mi día. I started my day. It doesn't matter. The specifics of what you're trying to say don't matter. The idea is just to get your overarching idea across, not the specific thing that first popped into your mind in English that you're really hoping to say. Doing this helps a ton in avoiding the trap of trying to find the English word for whatever it is you're trying to say as soon as you hit a blank. A few more tips that I'll leave you with before we go, and that is to, one, when you're listening, focus on trying to understand the gist of what you're saying rather than getting hung up on individual words. As long as you can understand the overarching message, you're good. Focus just on that. Second thing, which is kind of related, is to focus on more listening. The more you can surround yourself with tons and tons of Spanish, the more the patterns of the language will start to sink in and become automatic, which is basically what people mean when they say thinking in Spanish, is that the things come out automatically without having to think. They're just so ingrained that they come out automatically. And third is to not second guess yourself, especially when it comes to grammar. Whatever you do to improve your grammar in Spanish, try to leave that to the side when you're speaking with someone or listening to someone. Don't overanalyze what they're saying or why they said it the way they did, and don't overanalyze what you're saying. Try to just let the words come out. Trust what you learned in your learning session and just let the actual conversation flow. If what you say is incorrect, that's okay. If it's unintelligible, people will let you know by saying, sorry, what, can you repeat that, or can you explain that a different way, or what did you mean? That's no big deal. It's just part of the learning process. So getting out of your English brain and thinking more in Spanish is really more of a process of focusing more on overarching meaning than individual words. Communicating a general idea over communicating a specific sentence that you have in your mind. Understanding a general idea rather than understanding individual words that you come across. That is it. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, you can subscribe. I put out videos just like this one every week. And if you want to improve your Spanish with me, I'll leave all the information you need in the description box below. Thanks for watching.